Welcome back to our Labor Day special here on RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman. In our last segment, we looked at the uncertain state of labor in 2014. In this segment, we focus on labor unions in 2014, where they are and where they could go. Joining us, as we had in the last segment, Adrian Huff. Adrian is the principal officer for Teamsters Local 445 and the treasurer of the Area Labor Federation. And from the studios in Demos in Manhattan, we're joined by Catherine Ruetschlin. She is a policy analyst for Demos. And we're not that far, Adrian, removed from an era where labor unions were seen as a stabilizing force. As you mentioned, the bulwark of the middle class. Better wages, better working conditions, even better workplace safety, as we learned from the Triangle Shirtwaist factory fire. Today, though, labor union membership is down comparatively, and public opinion, public sentiment of labor unions is down, and I'm curious why.
Well, I would say, good question. You know, why is that sentiment? I think public entertainment, such as Rush Limbaugh, those pundits out there, saying that we're just asking for too much, that we're the the big bad boogeyman when we come into an employer. The employers have a difficult time accepting unionism, I guess, is the best way to put it. They want control of their employees, not the employees having a say in what goes on in that workforce.
Catherine, do you think that people have bought into the notion that labor unions are somehow bad for business and by extension bad for workers?
I actually think there's two sides to this decline. Part of it has been a very deliberate attempt to make labor unions look like the source of fault in the economy. This has been an ongoing project, started with the Taft-Hartley Act in 1947 and was doubled down under Reagan in the early 80s. It's been a movement by political and economic interests to actually disparage labor unions. But on the other side, we've actually seen workers seeing labor unions as too concessionary. In the wake of the recession, automobile manufacturers asked for huge givebacks from workers, and workers said okay. Workers gave up wages that they'd been promised, benefits that they'd been promised, and then the factories shut them out anyway.
We've also seen a rise in the last several years of anti-union rhetoric, particularly from the political class, and even more specifically from conservative Republicans, Scott Walker, Chris Christie, as we go around the country. Catherine, I'll start with you on this one. Do you think that sort of drumbeat of anti-union messaging is sticking with people and is affecting the debate?
Well, I think it was hugely effective in Chattanooga in the recent organizing attempt at the auto manufacturing plant for Volkswagen. That was a company that's highly supportive of having workers at the table. The company actually enjoys workplace councils where they can get the input of their experienced employees that'll benefit across the entire production line. But it was actually the political figures in the state who threatened the company that if unionization passed, they would withdraw public subsidies. Now, it's very hard for a worker to evaluate on end which one of those benefits is going to be better. If the political state says no unions or else, it's very hard to then go out and vote for a union when it creates a threat.
Adrian, one more political question on this, because it seems as though union political activity has been so linked with one party, in this particular case the Democratic Party, that there's almost a political incentive, an electoral incentive for Republicans to oppose labor unions, regardless of the economic consequences or the impact on workers. It's good politics for them because hurting unions suppresses Democratic votes.
Back when Reagan was president, I think even President Reagan would not do what the Republicans are doing today. He had a respect and a fear for labor unions. That's gone away, it's eroded, and we need to get that strength back. Yeah, the Republicans do use that wedge. I guess it's a good wedge issue between the Democrats and the Republicans.
We talked about the changing economy, the changing workforce. If you go back to the 50s and the 60s, you had a lot more industrial jobs, you had a lot more manufacturing, muscle jobs, and people with lower education levels, and unions helped them not only survive but help them flourish. And Catherine, there are certainly fewer of those jobs in our economy today. but it seems like they've been replaced in the overall by service sector jobs like retail and fast food that you focused on, areas where lesser educated people can find or find their jobs and their income sources, and yet they're not enjoying the same benefits as blue-collar workers did a couple of generations ago. Is that in part because of unions, and how would unions help their plight?
Absolutely. You know, manufacturing jobs weren't considered good jobs until unions came in, organized workers, and demanded safe workplace practices, fair wages, and benefits. And there's no reason that the service industry can't be considered good jobs as well. It's just that they've been historically difficult to organize because the workplaces are decentralized and the workers may not recognize their interests across companies in the same way that manufacturing workers do. So at this point, unions, in hope for the future, have moved into these new areas and are starting to organize. And I think that they've taken a page from union organizing history and gone back to the practices of the 1960s, of the civil rights eras, by aligning with community groups and faith groups to say, you know, this is about economic fairness, but it's also about democratic justice and our social principles.
But Adrian, there is a fear among some workers who would be in a position to unionize that, well, if the boss finds out, I'm going to lose what I have. And as we talked about in our last segment, people feel like they're hanging on by a thread right now.
Two roadblocks in organizing. One is fear. Fear is our biggest concern as far as the employees. The second is the employer. The employer instills that fear in those members, whether it's through intimidation or actually termination. I've seen that happen so often. An employer will go out and intentionally fire the I won't call them ringleaders, but the organizers. You know, trying to instill that fear upon those people. Again, everybody needs their job, but when that happens, can't help but be fearful and walk away. What really should happen is to speed up the process when you want to organize a location, when the members come out, when the employees come out of that workplace and they want to form a union. It should happen much quicker than it does now.
Got about 30 seconds left for each of you for the last question, and that is how to get unions to rebound in the future, how to make unions more of a vital force than they've been in the past. And Catherine, we'll start with you.
Sure. You know, this is really Adrian's project, but if I were to give some advice, I would say that unions absolutely have to position themselves as the champions of those who have been left out of the economic gains. And that means not just workers in any particular sector, but actually the majority of all Americans.
Adrian?
Repeat the question again, I'm sorry.
How to bolster unions for the future, how to make them more of the vital force in the workforce that they used to be?
Well, education. We need to educate the people that we're trying to organize, educate them, take away that fear from the employer, show them what we can do. Actions speak louder than words, and show them the product. And the end product is the contract. Once they have a contract that they can depend on, that both the employer and the union and the membership agree that they vote on it in a democratic process, that's the proof. That's the strength.
Adrian Huff, Principal Officer for Teamsters Local 445 and the Treasurer of the Area Labor Federation. Thank you very much. And Catherine Ruetschlin, Policy Analyst at Demos. Catherine, thank you. Happy Labor Day to you both.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a quick break here on RFL. We'll wrap it up right after this.